Hello, everyone, and welcome to Musing, music for the adventurous listener here on CJSW 90.9 FM in Calgary. I'm your host, Janna Sailor. Today, I'm in conversation with Cypriot-Greek Canadian composer and musicologist Michalis Andronikou. Michalis holds a PhD in composition from the University of Calgary, as well as a master's degree in musicology from the University of Athens, Greece. He also holds diplomas in classical guitar, clarinet, and music theory from Trinity College London and the Royal Academy of Music, as well as a diploma in Byzantine music from the Agropolis Conservatory. Michalis gained additional credentials in music composition at the Hellenic Conservatory, and his music training includes studies in traditional Greek folk instruments such as the lute, tambura, and bouzouki. Michalis is an associate composer of the Canadian Music Centre and is affiliated with the Greek Composers Union, the Centre of Cypriot Composers, and serves as an ambassador of culture for the Hellenic Institute of Cultural Diplomacy. Michalis Andronikou is my guest on today's episode of Musing. So let's dive in. Hello, Michalis. Welcome to Musing. I'm so thrilled to have you in conversation with me today. I'm going to start with a question that I ask a lot of composer creators that I have on the show, and that is, how do you describe yourself as a composer and creative?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm an eclectic composer. I'm integrating aspects of Eastern Mediterranean music into Western new music, and I do it differently every time according to the needs of the musicians, performers that I collaborate with, or festival or opportunity that arises.
Now, you are one of the most prolific composers I have ever encountered in recent history. Where do you find your inspiration, and how do you sustain such a vigorous and comprehensive writing practice?
I try to write every day if possible, which means I allow the energy to flow, and then this brings me ideas. One idea will bring the other, and of course sometimes I have to stop, and sometimes I have to throw things that I don't like and start from scratch, but I find that if you work, then ideas will come to you.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very disciplined approach.
It is.
And we often, as creatives, we work spontaneously and not always with discipline. And so I love that you have the discipline, and that actually nurtures the creativity.
Well, I have good friends, good performers that play my music, and they are a source of inspiration, and also my family is a source of inspiration. Living in various places allowed me to have various sources of inspiration and references, so I find that all of these together help me in my work.
Can you talk a bit more about that, your sources of inspiration? And something that I think of immediately when I think of your work is your identity as a Greek-Canadian composer. Can you talk about your inspiration and how your identity as a Greek-Canadian composer plays into it?
Yes. I'm a Cypriot-Greek Canadian composer, and I have a kind of triple identity. I was born in Cyprus, and I lived there until I was 20, and then I moved to Athens, Greece, where I did my basic studies and my first grad studies, and then I came to Calgary, where I did my PhD. I feel like I lived three lives. In many ways, they are different, both in time and in space, and people that I met in these three places are so different that allow me to create a kind of fourth world, which is the world of the diaspora. And so at some point, after living for 17 years in Canada, I feel like I may start to forget my Greek, and I cannot really speak English very well. So the only language that I speak freely in my imaginary world is music. And this universe is interesting to me, and I find that many times I exist in my music more than I exist in Canada or in Greece.
That universal space. That's wonderful. I love that. What does it mean to be able to share your identity as a Cypriot Greek through your music?
Well, I was a folk musician before I was trained as a classical musician. So I learned the folk music of Cyprus and Greece. And this music is different than the Western music that we learn here in Canada or in, let's say, in the West. It's different in various ways. It's different theory system. There are microtones. There are different rhythms. There are different ways of the use of music in traditional societies where music is not isolated but is used to celebrate, to dance, to communicate the relationships in a small society. And so this identity, this is carried in my music, whether I want it or not. When I write a piece for piano now or a classical guitar, it carries something from my previous identity. Instead of trying to understand it and categorize it in an academic way, I try to free myself through music and blend all this in an organic way so that I may create something that people will understand here in Canada as well as in Cyprus or in Greece. I think that's the goal of my music, to find what is beautiful in combining all these aspects.
Can you tell us a bit more about your musical journey? You mentioned you started as a folk musician. Tell us how that transition happened to the Western tradition of classical music.
I started learning the bouzouki when I was 5. The bouzouki is a Greek traditional instrument. And when I was 13, I started performing professionally in pubs and restaurants in Cyprus. And while doing that, I started learning the guitar, first the classical guitar. I was a clarinetist in the Cyprus Youth Symphony Orchestra for 3 years. Then I moved to Athens, Greece to study musicology. I did my bachelor's and integrated master's degree in musicology at the University of Athens, Greece. While doing that, I studied at the Athens Conservatory, the Hellenic Conservatory, where great performers of the past studied, like Dimitri Mitropoulos or Maria Callas. And so I studied there. I studied harmony, counterpoint, fugue, and composition. And I also taught there after I finished my composition with Theodore Andronikou. Theodore Andronikou was my first composition teacher. He was a professor at Boston University, and he spent half the time in Boston and half the time in Athens, Greece. And then I came here to Calgary. I did a PhD in composition. I studied with David Eagle, Alan Laurie Radford, and musicology with Friedman Sellers. I knew from a very early age that I wasn't going to be a performer. Although I performed with pop singers in Greece and folk singers, I knew that I was going to be a composer. This is what I was interested in the most. And I find that this is the most exciting thing in my life that I'm doing now still. So I didn't lose my excitement.
Well, that's very evident in your work. It's very fresh and always very original and tells a story. as you developed as a musician and as a composer, how do you marry these influences of your Greek upbringing with Western compositional influences?
Obviously, I'm not the first one who did it. Many composers before me, great composers, started doing it in the Greek National School, which was around 1940s. Before that, we had the Italian influences in Western Greece. So I studied some of that music while I was doing my musicology degree. I studied their music, and I was influenced by many Greek composers. One of the greatest composers was Nikos Kalkotas, who studied with Schoenberg. And he was the first one who realized that it has to be within a modern sonic language. He was not accepted during his life, so he was someone who influenced me as a composer. But I realized that if I stayed in Athens or if I stayed in Cyprus, I would have to follow what other composers did, in a sense that these were the composers who wrote the history of modern Greek music. So it's hard to escape that if you live in that place. So one of the reasons that I left was to be alone and find my own voice if I can. I'm still working on it, but I think I'm getting somewhere. I remember, for example, I had a piece performed in 2012 here at the University of Calgary by the Lancet Ensemble, and it was a 22-minute piece called Osmosis Emosis. And I remember an old lady in her 80s or 90s, when the concert was finished, she came to me and she said, "You know, I closed my eyes and I saw that blue, the GNC, which I visited in 1962. And I think, okay, that's it then. There is something here." So she experienced something that I couldn't experience. I couldn't know if I did it well or if I didn't do it well or if this was a successful combination of the two worlds. And of course I did my best, and my supervisor did his best, and all the great professors that I had at the University of Calgary helped me. I'm so grateful for their help. But I still had this question mark in my mind whether this work was successful. And she told me that she saw that blue in the GNC, and this brought tears to my eyes, and I remember that. I won't forget that. It meant something to me. So that was my goal, to combine this in a way that would inspire people here and there.
That's an incredible quality that music has to evoke time and place. You've touched on a few of them, but were there other instances of, kind of profound moments of realizations or like a turning point in your life that influenced your compositional path?
I had a few that I can recall, I guess. For me, song was always very inspiring. So the way that the ancient Greek music was really connected with theater and tragedy was tragodia and tragoudi, which means song in Greek, was one thing. So there was the theatrical aspect of the song, and there was also the motion and the dance, the bodily experience of the song, and there was also the logos, the speech, the lyrics. All of these were very important to my music. And as an immigrant, the first thing that I realized is that I disconnected with the logos, the speech, the language. So gradually, while back in Greece, I used to write music based on Greek poems. I started writing songs here while working with modern poets, and I wrote a song in Manitoba with Luann Hiebert, a professor. I was teaching at Providence University in Manitoba. I taught there between 2017 and 2019. It was the moment where Dmitry Khorostovsky passed, the great Russian baritone. And the day that he passed, I had a professor of voice in my office who admired Dmitry, and we asked that poet to write something for this baritone, Dmitry Khorostovsky, and I wrote a song that we sent to his family, and it circulated a lot. It was published in Italy, it was performed in Russia, it was performed in New York and in Greece, here in Calgary. It was performed in various places, and many people told me that this sounded like Russian, or some other people told me this sounds like a Greek song. Some people from Calgary told me this is very Canadian. So everybody saw a different identity in that song. So I thought that was a kind of turning point in my writing.
How fascinating. You have a very international career. Your music is published by, well, a number of international publishers, and you've established these relationships that see your music performed everywhere. How do you go about building an international career like that?
I think it happened. I got lucky here.
Oh, you're not just lucky. You're also incredibly talented.
Most of these people that I collaborated with, they asked me to collaborate. So I really feel like I got very lucky. For example, this publishing in Washington, D.C., they sent me an email for a piece that I wrote many years ago that they heard somewhere, and then they published more of my music. So many of these people that contacted me found me by luck, and I feel very lucky.
As a composer, what goes into a successful collaboration, whether that be with another musician or an ensemble or a publishing company?
I think it is very important to think of other people's needs and to balance things in many ways. For example, Nueve Vocal Soliste in Stuttgart performed a piece of mine called Dum Spiro Spero. I wrote the text for this and the music. This is one of the most difficult pieces that I wrote because it has extended techniques for voice, etc. I had to write this because I had to follow their needs. They wouldn't perform a simple song if I wrote it for them. The publishers also have certain needs. So I mentioned earlier, the publisher publishes music for clarinet and especially bass clarinet. So they wanted pieces that would support what they already have. Another thing that it is important is to teach the audience. For me, I'm a teacher along with being a composer. I share my time. I teach more than I compose, actually, but I'm trying to balance more as I get older. You have to teach the audience. I think that if we present pieces that are 30 minutes long, full of dissonances and extended techniques, and we have less audience than musicians on the stage, then we fail. We don't really have a vision. And unfortunately, this happens nowadays. There are many composers who stay at home and compose for a year, a symphonic piece that is 1 hour long and it's full of dissonances, and there's no audience that wants that, and except from 5 specialists. So this is the elite of contemporary music. I appreciate what they do. They raise the bar. I understand why they do that. It is important. But on the other hand, it is also important to teach the majority of the people to appreciate good music more. So with short pieces that have one difficult moment and the rest is easy to grasp and follow, then we may improve this work a little bit. That's my vision. And that's how things work too, I think, in my career, because performers like playing my music. They hear a piece on YouTube or on social media, and then they ask me where can they purchase the score. And they never purchase. I'd always say to them for free.
Oh gosh, you got to make a living.
And I always do that. I ask the publisher first too, but I always want to help my performers do what they want to do. And I'm very grateful to the people who play my music. So the least I can do is to send them a score.
Well, that's incredibly generous of you and deeply appreciated, I'm sure. think the role of contemporary music is in this day and age and with this kind of climate amongst concert goers?
Well, I think it's to make us better people, improve our humane qualities, make us think of each other and care for each other more, and make us sensitive and accepting, and help us understand each other more. So that's what I think is the main role.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about your latest album, Heliostagma. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, Heliostagma is sun drop.
Sun drop.
It's a sun drop, which means two things. It's the flower, and it's also a drop of a sun as a drop of inspiration. It was the poet's title. It's poetry by Yorgos Mastroiannopoulos, who is a guitarist and a poet. It was performed by Elektra Karali, who is a singer from Salonika, Greece, and Panagiotis, who is again a Greek guitarist who resides in Zurich. So this is a project that we recorded last summer, and it's going to be released this July in Italy by Da Vinci Classics. It's my 10th personal album.
That's
and
amazing.
I'm very happy for this collaboration, and I'm also happy because this record label translated the poems, and there is a bilingual booklet that will help people who don't read Greek to see the poems. It's 15 songs for voice and guitar, which is a very intimate ensemble, and it's short songs that I feel can be heard by everyone. sometimes when we go to contemporary music concerts, we feel like this is not for everyone. So I feel like this music in this album could be heard by anyone, by my mother and by my sister and people who did not attend a music school but want to listen to something like that.
Can you give us an example of some more of the poetry that's included?
So these are short philosophical poems that don't rhyme, and they're almost like statements. When you hear the first time, you may feel that was written for you. It becomes personal. So one of the songs is called Destination, and it says, to reach the distant land of success, you must have the ability to board the transportation vehicle that may just pass, by chance, right beside you.
Wow.
So the destination to success is luck. It's based on luck. This is what the poet says here. And I agree with him.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to diving into that album. Tell us about your upcoming projects and performances that you have in the works.
Well, I have a few in the summer. I have on the 6th of July, I have this performance by this percussion duo called Flamma Duo. It's a festival in Trieste, Italy, and they are doing my Constellation Cygnus, which was performed a few years ago in Cyprus. After that, there is a festival in Iceland where I'll have a piece for piano and violin. After that, I will have a festival in Cyprus where Manolis Neophytou will premiere a piece that I wrote for him. And after that, there is a performance in Athens, Greece. I have a few performances in the summer, and I'm posting a lot on social media about them so people can see them. I'm trying to promote those events and festivals. And of course, the duo Panos Merachiotis and Elektra Karali will have a tour performing music from our last album. That is going to be released on the 25th of July.
Wonderful. Lots of things on the go. And with someone such as yourself, who's so prolific and so busy and often commissioned, what's next for you creatively? Where do you see yourself going and growing?
Well, I hope to collaborate more with some local musicians and some local performers and some local conductors who are interviewing me now.
Noted.
So I'm hoping to do more here if I can. But I don't really have a plan, to be honest with you. I just go where life takes me, and I'm just composing. I try to serve with my music, too. So if you need a piece and you tell me today, I'll write it for you, and I'll dedicate it to you, and I will do it the best so that it works for you. So I'm trying to be a good teacher, and this is something that relates to my composition, because I get inspiration from my students and then I give them my music to inspire them. So I think one supports the other.
I love that.
That's what I do.
That's both practical and inspired, and I love that approach. Well, I think that's a perfect place to leave it. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to be in conversation with me today on Musing.
Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much, and until next time, we'll say goodbye for now. This has been Musing on CJSW 90.9 FM in Calgary. I'm your host, Janna Sailor. Thanks so much for joining me for this celebration of music, creators, and ideas. Musing is a production of the Canadian Music Centre Prairie Region and is heard right here in Calgary and around the world via the magic of the internet that connects us. As we end our time together, we recognize that there are more than 630 First Nations communities across the lands that we now know of as Canada, representing 50 distinct nations and Indigenous languages. In addition, there are Métis in every province of the country and 53 Inuit communities speaking different dialects of Inuktitut across the north. We acknowledge them as the original music makers, dancers, creators, and caretakers of our lands, and they continue to inspire and teach us as we commit to learning and moving forward together. I will leave you now with more music of Michalis Andronikou. Until next time, thanks for listening and for supporting Canadian music and composers in your community.